Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 3rd of December 2017 and we have loads of information to talk about tonight, and we have two great guests on the show. The two guests are Pat Greene from the Direct Democracy Ireland Party, and we have Ben Gilroy. Ben and Pan have been on the show before, and what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about the current status of Ireland and the things going on and what's happening at the moment, because everybody's can see what's going on, the corruption that's going on in the country, and certain people committing crimes and not being held accountable for them. So, and a few other things as well. We'll go through anyway the bits and pieces that we have on the list. But before we do that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Yes, the communication channels, please.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, the OYM chat room, oymradio.com. You will see the link there for the chat room. If you're already registered, you can click on there and join in the festivities over there with the rest of the people already logged in. And also peoplesinternetradio.com. We have the website, or we have the chat room over there. We're monitoring that as well. So if you have any questions for Pat or Ben this evening, that is the place to put them. You can also, if you feel like it, you can ring us in on the old telephone, 046 927 1212 is the phone number from inside Republic of Ireland. From outside, it's 00353 469 27 1212. We also have the usual links on the website there, oymradio.com, for the anti-social media, Facebook, Twitter, the YouTube channel, and all great information on the site as well, and the TuneIn Radio link application that's there as well. You can download, stick it on your iPhone or your smartphone, and we're also on radio.garden, as we found out, as Alan told me last week. So if you have a browser open, go to radio.garden. You will see a big map of the world. Look for Ireland. Click on one of the links up near the kind of the top right hand, well, the middle right. You will get us there as well. And we're also on Facebook. So hi to everybody on Facebook.
Brilliant. Well, we seem to be everywhere.
We're all over the place.
We are. Now, before we get in and talk about a few bits and pieces that we have to talk about, we did upload the Basis Conference. As you know, we did a talk we were invited to do a talk at the Basis Conference in September by Miles and his team. And we've uploaded, it's a video, and you see myself and Steve on the video.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, not just talking, but you can actually see what we look like as well. Faces for radio. But it's good information, I think, and we're going to be doing the Open Mind Conference in Waterford next year as well. We're going to be doing the talk on that as well. But if you want to see us, just pop over to our YouTube channel and you'll find us there. So Steve's going to kick us off with the bits and pieces tonight.
Yeah, reported in the irishtimes.com, it says, double the licence fee or say goodbye to Irish programming. Public service television costs money and will cease to exist if we do not fund it. Are we in Ireland serious about being Irish? If so, we need to double the TV licence fee. Yes, double it. Much has been written and debated around television licence fees over many years, but very few have called for what is actually needed. Public service television costs money, and if we do not pay for it, it will not exist, pure and simple. All costs have increased, yet the television licence fee has remained static. Various boards of the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland, the BAI, and various ministers for communications have failed to support any increase, including a basic increase to keep pace with inflation. Indeed, ministers have cut the television licence in real terms by taking funds for local radio news, commercial television broadcasters and other funding out of the original television licence fee. The government must act now on two fronts. Firstly, television licence evasion ranges from 15% and 18%, with an estimated revenue loss of about 40 million annually, which equates to the current total statutory spend by RTE on independent productions for its schedule of programmes. Not only is it unfair, to be honest, hard-working Irish people who pay the licence fee, the 40 million deficit comprises the quality of service they receive. We need to crack down on licence fee evaders. Secondly, it says if the government does not substantially increase the TV licence or introduce a broadcast household charge, we will not have any Irish television content worth watching. So what do you think of that? RTE could be going bye-byes.
Well, they did the poll on the independent.ie,
Yes,
and they asked people, you know, do you want to keep RTE, the TV licence, or do we let them go? And 92% of the people said, let RTE go.
Let them go.
They were useless.
Yeah.
They are useless. It's a propaganda station. It's a semi-state body, propaganda station for the government. We all know that. I don't actually watch RTE. I haven't watched RTE since, I don't have it. So I haven't watched it since 2010.
Doesn't matter.
You know?
If this new broadcasting charge comes in, it doesn't matter whether you watch it or whether you don't watch it. Basically what they're going to be saying is, well, we're providing it. Whether you watch it or not is your own business. See, we are providing it.
It should be the other way around. You see, the whole idea is that it's a broadcasting charge. Yeah. Now they know that people are saying, we're not paying the TV licence or getting rid of the TVs. They're losing money. Now, RTE as a station should be like TV3 and any other station and do advertising. But you know why they won't do it? Because they'll be gone in about a month.
Of course it will. Well, look, you look at it this way. If they went subscription, they wouldn't last peeing time, as the fella says. But the likes of all the people that work there, well, a lot of people that work there. One of the chaps that works there, Ryan Tuberty, done the Late Toy Show on last Friday. Now, seemingly the fee that he is on now, his yearly fee equates to about €8,000 a week.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to be on that, wouldn't you?
I think they're changing it from a TV licence to a Tuberty licence.
It must be. But the whole idea around this broadcasting charge is basically what they're saying is, you and I have internet access. Anybody who has internet access is paying for internet access, right? Okay? Yeah. So now what they're going to say is, well, even if you don't own a TV, you can still watch content, be it on YouTube or RTE Player or whatever. So they want you to subscribe or pay for this license to cover watching the content. So basically, you're paying for access to the internet, and then they want you to pay for watching content as well. Is that not a double charge?
Yeah. But look, we know what they're up to. We know what they're up to. Anyway, we'll get Pat and Ben's opinion on it. Very quickly,
I have to say, and we heard this during the week as well, that what RTE are now saying is, if people are going to keep evading the licence fee and people won't pay it, then what's going to happen next is they're going to get revenue. You know that?
The revenue. The revenue. It's going to pass off the revenue.
Yeah, so it'll be taking out your wages or your benefits.
Unbelievable. I mean, it just gets worse. Okay, well, again, funny enough, the IrishTimes.com seems to be the news article of the day, a few articles from the Irish Times. It says here, the state gets approval to repay $5.5 billion in bailout loans early. Paying off the IMF loans early should save the state $150 million in debt servicing costs. Okay, European authorities have given the state the go-ahead to fast-track the repayment of $5.5 billion in outstanding loans from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, Denmark and Sweden. The European Financial Stability Fund, EFSF, all these abbreviations, the Eurozone's crisis area bailout fund approved the plan on Monday. It paves the way for the state to repay the remaining $4.5 billion on its IMF bailout loan and another $1 billion in bilateral loans from Sweden and Denmark. Under the terms of Ireland's $67.5 billion international bailout in 2010, the EFSF is a forerunner to the current European Stability Mechanism, ESM, needs to waive its rights to be proportionally repaid early before other creditors can receive the money they are owed. Paying off the higher cost IMF loans early is expected to save the state around $150 million in debt services costs. Well, we've argued this point. It's an odious debt. It should never have been paid in the first place. If Ireland is paying 42% of the debt of Europe, how does that work out? Anyway, we'll be putting these issues to Pat and Ben. We'll get their take on things. Steve.
And if if they just took the money off Apple as well,
hey, why don't Apple just give the $13 billion direct to the IMF, and that will kind of help things out?
Absolutely bypass the Irish government. Irish Times again, the online.com says Taoiseach. This is actually old news now, but we'll kind of read it and we'll comment. It says Taoiseach Francis Fitzgerald is to announce her resignation from government this afternoon. That was on Tuesday the 28th, hours ahead of a no-confidence motion in the Dáil that threatened to bring down the government. The editor's note says it's all about saving face and saving the party reputation. Somebody posted that the government are goners if there's an election, hence why Fitzgerald is gone, but there is no one who can take their place, as it's all rigged anyway. We know that. Okay, she's gone, but the game will continue. And even if there was an election, okay, as Alan has said before, and we said it many times, it's a circus. So just different clowns. Different clowns will get in, but the game will always remain the same.
It's the survival of the party. It's like any corporate company. The corporate company will throw anybody to the dogs to save the company, and this is what they're doing. They obviously told this Taoiseach, Fitzgerald, that you're going to have to leave because you're going to cause a major problem for the party and for the government. So she was the sacrificial lamb, but they kind of paid her off so she has a nice little safe landing.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah,
and that's it. It's the whole survival thing. It's the scam that's going on, the way things are. Well, that's, let's talk about your week and my week, and we'll get the men on. How's your week?
My week's been quite interesting. I just want to say, because I know she's listening, so I want to say a very happy birthday to my 5-year-old baby. She turned 5 today. And,
happy birthday,
yes,
Holly.
Happy birthday, Holly. It's just kind of funny, because 5 years ago today, this actual day 5 years ago, we were in the hospital waiting for her arrival. And this morning, myself and my wife ended up in Mullingar Hospital because she's got something going on, like an abscess and a sinus infection, and she's on a scale of 1 to 10. Her pain level was 10, so she got no sleep last night. So we had to go down there this morning for an emergency appointment. So she got sorted anyway. So all is good.
I remember fatherhood. I remember the day very well. My partner was screaming, "Get out of me! Get out of me!" And then 9 months later, my son was born. Anyway,
this side of the watershed, I love it. Mommy, what does that man mean? Yes. Anyway, the only other thing I want to mention is, you may have remembered a couple of weeks back we spoke with Winston Shrout, and Winston does a thing called the Goldfish Report. Well, one of the most recent ones, number 129 of the Goldfish Report, with Winston Shrout and Louisa, they had a special guest on, Dr. Scott Werner. And Scott was given some great information about his life. He's an MD, a medical doctor, in the US, and he was given some great information about his life growing up and various things that happened to him. So he's in tune with what's going on. He knows, what's happening throughout the world. He's into alternative medicine. And if you haven't listened to the Goldfish Report, I will put the link up to the actual one I speak of. Have a listen to it. Even download it and stick it on your MP3 player or your phone or whatever, and just listen to some of the things that he's saying, because it's mind-blowing information. But he does say, that we're always kind of waiting for the end of the world, and this is going to happen, and this, all these things are going to happen to the planet. He reckons, according to his information, that we're safe. We're safe for a while, until 2034. So 2034. Put that in your calendar.
Get your rosary beads out and start praying.
Well, you'll be praying for another 17 years, but he reckons it's 2034, and he gave some reasons why to do with the birth of Christ and all this. He comes at it, some of it from kind of a religious angle.
Can I just jump? Didn't the Pope say a few weeks ago that Jesus was a metaphor and actually didn't exist?
I wasn't there.
Yeah, apparently the Pope said...
You had an audience with him, did you?
No, but apparently this has gone around the internet. Apparently the Pope said that...
Is he tweeting it? Yeah.
Jesus was a metaphor and actually didn't exist.
Okay.
So that kind of blows that out of the water. And this is why you have to always question the information that you get. But I have emailed Scott to come on the show.
I say you come on.
We'll see what happens.
I'm sure he will come on, but unfortunately he will be kind of coming at it from a religious angle, so we need to bear that in mind. But 2034, he reckons, yeah. But he does actually talk about the higher vibration and higher raising one's consciousness, and he does kind of say how important that is, and it is important. I think we need to kind of concentrate on that. There's plenty of information out there showing you how to raise your consciousness and raise your vibration, and just kind of be better people. And actually, another thing that I noticed just during the week, and I said this to my wife recently, well, actually this week, I said, did you ever hear about that saying about, the world is full of great people? And she says, yeah, well, the world is full of great people, and as it says, if you can't find one, be one. And I was just kind of doing some what would you put it, just messing about during the week, and if I seen someone, if someone dropped something in a shop, I'd go over and I'd pick it up, and
Good karma.
Karma, yeah. And I found that, and even little things like that, like actually a woman was walking out of a shop, the shop shall remain nameless, but she was walking out, she dropped one of her items, and I bent down and I picked it up and I popped it in her bag and I smiled at her, and she smiled back, and that was it. It was a simple smile, a simple gesture, and I have to say, it gave me a lift. And I obviously wanted to do more, so I started going around and knocking other things out people's hands and picking them up. Anyway, that's
bringing old ladies across the road when you don't want to go.
Exactly, yeah. I didn't want to cross. But yeah, there we go. That's my my bit for the week. How's yours?
Okay, well, just before we bring Pat and Ben in there, I was a bit shocked during the week that two members of the Workers' Party were advocating mandating vaccines. Would you believe that?
Oh, here we go again.
Would you believe that? And one of the individuals are actually local to where I am, and I couldn't believe it. I was blown away that he actually agreed on the fact that vaccines should be mandated. And I just shake my head. I just can't believe that. And then some other lady, which is a Workers' Party person, she said that vaccines should be mandated as well. Now, I don't know why they're saying it. Obviously, they don't understand what's going on. But I'm just shocked at that. Totally shocked at that. So just to let you know, if you're a person who supports the Workers' Party, I'd go and do the research and check into it, because if they're looking to mandate the vaccines, and that's one of their policies that they want to bring in, I wouldn't be going there on that road, definitely not. Anyway, let's shoot on. Let's get on the two lads, because they've been waiting in the wings for a while. Now, Steve, you have the bio for Pat and Ben, if you want to give it a quick read out before we get them on.
I'd be delighted to. Yeah, Pat Greene, the leader of Direct Democracy, the Direct Democracy Party, that's DDI, he intends putting the power in the hands of the people by reintroducing direct democracy provisions into the Constitution as a first priority. Direct Democracy Ireland will ensure that it is held accountable, ensuring the people of Ireland will have the final say on all matters. Reintroducing direct democracy can solve the problems of party politics, making it obsolete and irrelevant. By giving the people ultimate control, people can overrule the party whip, preventing any party becoming dominant, while preventing actions or laws passed contrary to the interests of the people. The era of left versus right in Irish politics will end to be suppressed by a better system representing interests of the Irish people. And Ben, if you don't know Ben, well, I don't know, but Ben, as an ex-representative of DDI, Ben now focuses on educating people about how the system works, and in some cases represents them when required, along with dealing with his issues regarding the banking system.
Brilliant stuff. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing?
All good.
Oh, good.
Perfect here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, I hope that kind of bio covers both of you. So I'll go over to you, Pat, first. Is there anything that you want to add to that bio, Pat, or does it need to be updated?
It's fairly simple when it comes to Direct Democracy Ireland. Is that you've hit it on the nail, or hit the nail on the head, should I say? It's basically we want to bring everything back to where it should be and everywhere where it was from 1922.
And obviously,
go ahead.
I was just going to say it was in the original Constitution. Obviously,
it was in the Constitution. I think in 1919 and 1922. The one, I suppose, most people are familiar with, the 1922 Constitution that set up the state as we know it, and it was Article 48, and that allowed for people-initiated referenda, where the average person could go out and collect a certain number of signatures in a given time frame, and once that's done, the government has to call a referendum, and the referendum is then legally binding on the government, the outcome of the referendum. Sorry lads, just a second, turn that off. So there's nothing more really to it. The other aspect of it is to have recall, and that would be where we can actually fire one of the politicians midstream. How to do that now is another thing, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we know there's politicians out there that are incompetent, and they seem to, the more incompetent they get, the more kind of bonuses they get, or they get jobs in Europe. And you should be able to, like in any corporate company, if you're incompetent, you get sacked. But it seems to be a bonus if you're incompetent with the government. And it's just not right. The system has to change. I'll just go off to Ben. Ben, is there anything you want to add to the little bio that we read out there?
No, not really. I put in a lot of work into direct democracy as a leader, and I suppose you could say to some extent I put them on the map. We stood in a by-election and came fourth and bet a party that was sitting in government. So that was a very successful thing that we did in regards to direct democracy, because the whole system is against it, because turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
True.
Now that we're in that season, I thought I'd use that one.
And you got great support, because I remember, obviously, you're in the same area we are, County Meath, and you got great support. But as you said, and I think you're so right, people were voting for the mainstream parties like they were football teams.
Oh, that's right. I mean, I remember I went to Ashbourne Community Centre and we gave a public talk, and people from the public came in and they asked certain questions and what would happen and what would happen. And I just remember, I suppose, the enormity of what I was trying to do when one man came over to me and he said, "Look, Ben, I'm going to tell you honestly," he said, "you are by far the best, so you're getting my number 2.
Yeah.
And that just always resonated with me, you know. So, you know, it's party politics first, and that's what happened ultimately. And then, of course, because I caused a shock, the RTE machine then comes out and starts attacking you. Now, I remember a few years ago, I don't know if anybody remembers the RTE primetime hit piece that they did. And when they were talking about me, they even, you know, they darkened the camera lighting and they put on scary music. And they referred to me as, "These people believe money's created out of nothing." And they want me to pay a TV license for that. In circumstances where there's an awful lot of financial professors coming out now and actually agreeing with me. And of course, I'm absolutely right in any event.
Well, funny you should say that, Ben, because I actually have a recording of a Bank of England representative saying that they take money out of fresh air.
But you see, this is what I'm saying. I don't need anybody to agree with me. I'm entitled to my point of view the same as everybody else. I did my own research, and it was an uneducated statement I was making that, you know, so I don't care what RTE says. RTE, although they said these people believe money's created out of nothing, they didn't come back and say, and of course factually they're wrong because here's how it's done. It was just that scary music and that was the claim. But they didn't actually come back and say, "Oh, by the way, he's wrong because of X, Y, and Z." Or they didn't have an expert on, or they didn't certainly call me into the studio. I mean, the night after the election, they called me into the studio and tried to attack me with the free man stuff and all this nonsense. But then, of course, they wouldn't invite me on again because they said, "Geez, this guy can argue his corner. We better not get him on about the creation of money. Let's just attack him when he's not in the studio."
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. What can we say? They might have played something like this, Steve. Yeah, something dramatic, I don't know whether you heard that.
We did.
But, oh, there you go.
That's the scary music.
There's more scary music.
That's what it should have been, an uplifting tone.
Okay, well listen, we got the two of you on the show because what we want to do is talk about the state of Ireland. It's 2017. The one thing that's happening, and we were told this a couple of years ago, is that there's going to be a massive revealing of information where people will have to wake up because it's going to be in their face. And over the last 2 years, that's what's been happening. Whether it's Pizzagate, whether it's the corrupt politicians, whether it's, you know, what's going on with the Gardaí over here, with the fixing of the penalty points and everything else. There's so much now coming out that you'd have to be stuck in a cave for the last 5 years not to see that there's something going on. So Pat, I'll just go off to you first. What's your take on? I mean, you talk to people. You're involved with DDI, and you're promoting the party. What's your take on it? I mean, have people woke up? Have you been speaking to people, and people are now saying, "Yes, we agree to Pat. What you were saying years ago was right. We can see what's happening," or are they still, covering their eyes and saying on ears and just saying, listen, I'm not interested. It's the NIMBY approach, as what Jerry Ryan would have said, not in my backyard. Is that still happening?
Yeah, that's unfortunately the sort of response I'm getting is, sure, that's not going to happen. You talk about direct democracy, you explain how it works, and they say, why don't we do that? That should be happening. And I said, yes, but like what Ben said, they give the number one vote to the local lad. And, they don't understand how to vote. They don't understand how the voting system works.
Yeah.
They don't even understand democracy, let alone how to vote. Mm. And at the moment we live in an inverted democracy. It's an autocracy, but an inverted democracy, I think, is the best way of describing it to the average person. Is that, the difficulty for them is that, in my opinion, is that they just don't know how to think. They cannot think. They cannot critically think anything. I was speaking with a neighbour of mine in particular not long ago, and he grew up with a Fianna Fáil PD in my locality, and he said to me, again, similar to Ben, I gave you a stroke. I said, yeah, how far down the page was it? And it was down the page. He says, it's pointless. He said, you either want the system to change, you don't want the system to change. And where he was saying he wanted the system to change, he was also talking about how good Fianna Fáil was to him. I said, yeah, but that's to you. What about the rest of us? Mm. What about community? What about the country as a whole? So maybe he got something like a medical card for a person, or maybe he did something silly like that. But they don't even see what's wrong with that. The fact that if you're entitled to a medical card, you're entitled to it. If you're not, you're not. There's rules there. Mm. Now, if you're asking somebody to break the rules, well then bring up for fraud. But nobody's breaking the rules. But the civil servant mustn't be doing their job. So somebody needs to be held accountable, and there's no accountability.
No.
But even when you say that to people, and you explain that to people, they look at you and go, and give the number one to the local lad. Mm. And it's just a mentality that's very difficult to break into. I was at a counter not long ago, and this guy came in and he started complaining about what had happened with the Garda representatives and all the hullabaloo about that. And I said, yeah, sure, why are you giving out? And he looked at me and he says, yeah, but I said, hang on, didn't you vote for them? He said, yeah, so they're doing what you asked them to do. He said, I didn't ask them to do that. And I said, but isn't that what representative democracy is? They're representing you. They're representing your ideas. I even said to him, if we're a member of a group, say 10 men together, we're a member of a group, and I'm to represent the group's views over there as another meeting, am I allowed to go over to that other meeting and air my own personal views? Silence is usually what hits me. Mm. And they go, well, no. And I said, well, hang on a minute. You're telling me that the guy you voted to represent you, went off with his own views? Mm. They walk away. They suddenly realise they voted for the shit, excuse the expression, that came back on them. Yeah. And that's the only way I get them to understand. But the sad part is, they'll go and vote for him again. Yeah. And how to get across that is a very, very difficult, very, very difficult act altogether. I have ideas in my mind, again, usually take finance, but we'll just have to start probing them and start hitting them with, why did you do this? Why did you vote for a person to tell me what to do? Yeah. That's basically it. It's madness that there's so much being revealed, but yeah, people are still programmed to vote for the same party. Ben, what's your take on people opening up and seeing what's going on? Are you still coming across people with closed minds?
Yeah, very much so. I've always tried to do it in a sort of humorous way, because I believe humour connects you first. And, there's an old saying, a truth was spoken jest. And even today up on Facebook, I said I'm thinking of starting a new political party called The Liars. Yeah. And I said, wait for it now, because the reason I'm doing this is, I said, yes, we're going to admit that we will rob, steal and threaten you, but we'll do it less than the others. And I said something then that, could that be too honest maybe for Irish politics to come out and say that? And then I summed up the comment by saying, imagine a political party called the Liars is too honest for Irish politics. So it's just sort of to get people thinking, what do I mean by that, you know?
Yeah.
Now, it's well on the record that I don't like politics. I was never involved in politics before I met the founder of direct democracy, because I don't have this false belief in authority the way a lot of people seem to have. All authority, perceived or otherwise, must come from the people. And I'm a firm believer, and everybody will agree with me, certainly in law, that you cannot delegate a power you do not have.
Yeah.
So I can't tax my next door neighbour. I cannot charge him for whatever he's watching on telly. And you can't come, Alan, to me and charge me for whatever you're broadcasting over the internet unless we contract with each other. It doesn't have to be signed or written. It can be perceived or assumed until those assumptions are bust by me. And this fake belief in authority drives me incredibly insane. And when I hear people talking about they will come and do this and they will come and do that, we sort of promote that, but that's from psychology through schooling, even from a very early age, of Day, the boogeyman. And I always say, who do you mean Day? You're talking about Pascal, from Fine Gael, is he knocking at the door? I just don't know who even they are. And that's why the only reason I would get involved in politics whatsoever, because I now sound like a hypocrite. And of course, the reason I'm going to explain to you I'm not, is because direct democracy is the personification of all power coming from the people.
Yeah.
And the minute you have recall, it personifies that, because even if I think this is what the people want and I vote in a certain way, the minute there's sort of a majority in my constituency that says, don't do that or undo that, it has to be done, or else I'm out. So it didn't matter, and I wasn't too upset that I was never voted in. I don't think it would have suited me anyway, because I would imagine I would have lost probably every week's Dáil wage and been dragged from the Dáil. But in any event, at least I sort of put it on the map, and people today know far more about direct democracy than they ever did. Now, even if it is because I'm in court with fake threats of contempt of court, or challenging receivers or banks or whatever, and they keep referring to me as the founder of direct democracy when it appears to be bad news, because this is how the system works. It attacks anybody that stands up against it. And of course, we all know, unless they're absolute idiots, that you can only have one founder of direct democracy, and that has always been Ray Whitehead. We didn't vote to change the founder, and I'm not sure how that would actually work. But in any event, that's my tuppence worth on politics.
Well, one thing that I'd like to comment on is last year you were at the Open Minds Conference and you did a great talk. Fantastic, well done for that. But one of the things you did point out, which I thought was very good, and you had footage as well, the whole idea of, say for example, a guard, and you say, well, who gives you the right to do what you do? Oh, well, that's the government.
That's right.
And who gives the government the right to do that? Well, there's the people. And say, hang on a minute, we can't give a right away. I don't have the right to tell you or Pat to come up to my house and wash my car unless there's some kind of contract in place. So if I can't get you to do that and I can't give that right away, how can I give that right to the government? And I thought that was very poignant.
That's always the question. Yeah, that's always the question. Where does your assumed authority comes from? Because if I can't do it, and I'm one of the people, then I don't know where anybody gets the power to do it. If it's against me, if the guy next door wants to let the TV guy into his house and take his cup of tea and everything that he's having, that's up to him. I can only be concerned of my dwelling here and my family, my sovereignty, my inalienable rights. They're mine. And I was born with them the same as everybody else on the planet. And it doesn't matter if you're a homeless guy sitting on O'Connell Bridge. He actually has more rights than the Taoiseach, or at least he should have, because he didn't say he was serving the people. He's one of the people, and that's the difference. Yeah. Well, so the lunatics have taken over the asylum, and we need to do something about it.
Oh, big time.
What has happened is, that you have a situation where the vast bulk of people have abdicated responsibility for their lives to these people in so-called authority.
Well, I'd even go further than that, Pat, and I would slightly disagree with you. All constitutions in Ireland have been written with little or no input by a certain elitist club. They certainly didn't contact the people. The constitutions are not signed by anybody. The last one, to my recollection, was in the 30s. I wasn't even alive then. So how I can be bound by that is an absolute impossibility unless I somehow am bound by it by my own free will. But I'm not bound by that at all. And secondly, what I have to say is that when you're in court, it's the only document or contract that they try to bind you to where neither of the parties have signed. The written document. It's a written document. I mean, it's different if I go in to buy an apple in a shop. I'm not saying every contract has to be in writing. Of course it doesn't. There's a meeting of the minds. The apple is on offer. There's a certain price for us. When I tender the money, that's my offer to contract. If they accept the money, that's the acceptance, and I eat the apple. If the apple is poison, I can sue them for breach of contract or whatever else it might be. But here we have an actual written agreement where allegedly the people under God gave certain authority to someone to act in a certain way. Where's my signature on that? And even if you were to make the assumptions that I was one of the people back in 1937, and while I can't be sure of my date of birth, I don't look that old, so I'm assuming I wasn't born anywhere around the 30s. So how I could be bound by this unsigned contract by either party, I'm totally unsure. And not only that, my parents or my grandparents could not include me in a contract when I wasn't even born. I couldn't be bound by that either. So where I'm bound by any of it, I have no idea.
Can I just add to that, Ben? We had Mark Stevens on. He's doing great work, legal work over in the
Love
States.
Mark, yeah, good guy.
And Mark's
read
good guy.
His books.
Yeah, and Mark actually was on the show a couple of times, and one of the things he said to us was all about the jurisdiction. And it makes you think, because he said that obviously everything is forced. If you want to get a driving licence, you're forced to get it, because if you drive down the road and you don't have a licence, the police will pull you out of the car and all that kind of stuff. So, so he's saying that you're forced to do everything by this mafia gang, which is what it is.
That's right.
Now, his approach, and there has been a case over here in Ireland, but the case was struck out. It wasn't actually won, which is convenient that they struck it out. But basically, he was talking about challenge the jurisdiction before you do anything. Because at the end of the day, he said that just because you're in the land of Ireland does not mean that the laws apply to you. And of course, the assumption by everybody...
I think you're probably misquoting Mark just on that. I don't think he refers to them as laws. The laws of Ireland being a common law jurisdiction of murder and that do apply. And they must apply. But I think he's talking about codes or regulations.
Yeah, legislation.
Which is in America that we call acts or legislation in this country. And part of the reason why the majority never wake up is this confusion of both. And every time you'll see pay your license, it's the law. Well, I haven't seen any law to that effect. And if all power comes from the people, that's why statutes and acts cannot be law and could never be law. Because how could I give power to anybody to rob my neighbour to pay for my children? That doesn't even make sense to me on any sort of logic.
Well, when I was referring to that, I'm referring to legislation. And basically, basically is challenge is that ask for physical evidence where it states that, you get caught for not having you go to court for a speeding fine or something. Common law applies, harm, loss and injury. I think we can all accept that. But for the legislation, the acts and the statutes, show me the physical evidence.
Well, even contract would apply though. I mean, because contract between the parties makes law. And as I say, that's the difficulty just people need to get by, because I often hear people saying no harm, injury or loss, and that's sort of correct. And if I was contracting with you about anything and I somehow breached it, but there was no harm or loss, it doesn't mean that you I don't have a contract with you and it couldn't be enforced, you would still have to show the loss in it. So, there's certain jurisdiction issues where by contracting with someone, there is a jurisdiction issue. And if you both agree that the courts of Ireland, being statute courts or courts of equity, shall have jurisdiction in this dispute, then you have sort of contracted well. So it just depends, it just needs to be careful what, there's adhesive contracts and implied contracts and all this sort of stuff. And just one needs to be careful. But basically, if you mind your own business and rebut all presumptions, then there's no presumption that I have to have anything. Now, I just much prefer to have a license simply because I don't have time to be stopped by every untrained Garda that I meet on the road, simply because the Gardaí are trained a certain way and it always ends up the same way. They'll arrest me, they'll bring me down to the Garda station, and then they don't bring a case further because I don't give them any information. But my advice is, if you're not breaking any law and you're not harming anybody, the first question you ask when you're stopped by a Gardaí is, am I under arrest? Now, there's good Supreme Court cases that say there's no halfway house between the unfettered liberty, now they say, of a citizen, right? Obviously, the people have unfettered freedoms, but even if you were deemed to be a citizen, they say there's no halfway house between the unfettered liberty of a citizen and arrest. You're either under arrest or you're free to go. So that's the only question I ask Gardaí. And look, I'm quite friendly with Gardaí and they're quite friendly with me. But at the same time, if I'm stopped by the Gardaí, my only question is, am I under arrest? And if I'm not, have a nice evening and I go on my way.
Yeah.
And then if I'm under arrest, I have the right to silence.
And true that.
And I remember I was arrested one time because I didn't give my date of birth. And I said to the guard, is it civil or criminal? She said, oh, it's criminal. I said, who's the injured party? She said, the state. Now, notwithstanding, she couldn't even tell me the name of the state. Yeah. I said to her, you're telling me the state who keeps the records of my birth are injured because I don't tell them what they already know. And the only reason I know it is because they keep the records and they've told me what it is. I could have no personal knowledge of that whatsoever. And notwithstanding that, it's an offence to give Gardaí misleading information. So, this is how ridiculous the system has got. And what it is it's run by a very small elitist club, the whole system, on every sort of country. And the countries that are not in this club, you'll see they've been threatened with war and everything else. But you will see all these threats come from a certain elitist club. And the way they really can only get proper jurisdiction if you're a criminal. So what you must do is, if you don't have enough criminals, you've got to criminalize the very simplistic things in life, like going down in your private property to pick up your children from school even. That could be a criminal offence on so many levels. You went 40 in a 30-mile zone, you didn't have a license, you didn't have tax, you didn't have NCT, you didn't park on the right place on the earth, whatever it might be. There could be 50 ways of being a criminal, and your only intent, remember now, intent is everything in criminal law, that your only intent was to pick up your child from school and cause no harm, injury or loss to anybody, which most people don't. And yet you could be a criminal 50 times over by the time you take that 20-minute journey or whatever it is.
It's like the woman who drove when the points system came out. She was driving from Cork to Dublin to see her friend. By the time she got to Dublin, she was banned off the road because she'd collected so many points. But this idea, though, of criminalising for people where you have inalienable rights.
Well, it's revenue. It's all about revenue.
It's all about revenue,
It's all about revenue. But the difficulty is convincing the average Joe and Mary Mops that this is wrong. This is not right. And they have this closed mind. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about abdication. They seem to believe, and they're brought up to believe, obey authority. Again, it's gone back to this word authority. And I start asking people recently, what is authority and where does it come from? Just tell me what is it and where does it come from? They can't tell you what it is. Well, then don't tell me where it comes from, because if you can't tell me what it is, you don't know what you're talking about. So they can't even tell you what it is.
Well, the beauty of simplifying it is that most people Because even with the little bit you are taught in school, and I remember they used to teach a thing called civil rights and stuff like that in school. I don't think they even do that anymore. And they used to tell you little things about the Constitution, not much. They certainly didn't tell you you're not bound by it. But I remember of the little bits we were taught, and I'm sure they're taught it still, that all power is derived from the people. Even Susan Denham, the last person to hold the office of Chief Justice or whatever corporate office that is, she came out in her book and said that they all accept all power comes from the people. Well, if that's the case...
That's not what they're practicing, though.
Yeah, but that's
it can be, because there's an assumption and a presumption that when you show up and you say, oh, I didn't have a license because I didn't have time to get it, well, there's a presumption and assumption you accept the contract and you needed one and you have to have one and all this sort of stuff, and that's the problem. But I'm looking at it, is it the Hague trial at the minute with Milosevic or whatever his name is? I very rarely watch TV, but he was up for war crimes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Am I right?
It's the lad who committed suicide recently.
He took the drink.
Yeah.
Do you remember he was up there for war crimes in Bosnia and stuff like that? And I think that in another 20 years, if we're all alive, thank God, we will see the likes of politicians, bankers, judges, and everything done for the crimes they've committed on the Irish people. I mean, you know, you were talking about bailouts and all this sort of nonsense. Like, I gave a list of bondholders to Claire Daly one time, and she revealed them on the Vincent Brown show. And of course I told her to say she got them from somebody else, not to mention my name. And I remember she rang me just before she went live and she said, are you sure these are the bondholders? And I said, well, sure, you're sitting beside Simon Covey and he's telling the people he doesn't know who the bondholders are. And I've always said, imagine treating the Irish people as being that stupid, that we're telling these people we have to pay these bondholders, and then telling the people we don't know who they are. So, in other words, you know, we're going to chuck a suitcase of money out the window every week and hope it lands on the right lap. Or else it'll be like the milk tray ad where he comes in and takes the suitcase and leaves his little card. So that's the first issue. But the second huge issue I have is now, this is the other wool now being pulled over the Irish people. People have to understand what are bonds and what are bondholders. And it was the whole mortgage crisis that went into disarray. And they were the bonds they were supposed to be holding. Now, notwithstanding, we gave something close in total, around 64 billion, which bankrupt a country like ours. Nobody has ever asked, who are the bondholders? And they want you to pay RTE now for licenses for this, the great investigative RTE that come after me for they create money out of thin air and don't even tell you how. But yet these great investigative journalists, even of the Times and the Irish Independent, has never once said, who are the bondholders? And when we bailed them out, did we get the bonds back? And if we got the bonds back, they must be worth millions now because the property is booming again. And having interest in all these bonds that we're now holding, when are we going to sell them? And these are the questions that nobody is raising anywhere. And I'm just saying, why?
Well,
we paid 64 billion to bondholders. Now, my theory is this.
All right.
Goldman Sachs is one of the biggest bondholders behind all of this, and I had the evidence that I gave to Claire Daly, as well as the Rothschilds and others. And if you look at Vincent Brown, when he's reading from the list, he says Rothschilds, and he looks into the camera and he goes, Rothschilds, you know what I mean, right? Now, that is on YouTube for people to see. But here's my problem with this. Goldman Sachs have the smartest cookies in town, no matter what you say. And if you think the likes of Pascal O'Donoghue or whatever his bloody name is, or Regina Doherty, or any of these people are smart enough, Damien English, or any of these, to outwit these people, we're on a hiding to nothing. And my belief is that the government either were given backhanders or whatever, but never got the bonds back. And it's clear the Irish people did not get the bonds back. So Goldman Sachs held on to them for 6 years. At 6 years on to, say, 2009, 2008, and you're roughly left at 2014, 2015. And now all of these companies that are set up called vulture funds are all owned by Goldman Sachs. So all the Promontorias, the Pentires, all of these companies are owned by Goldman Sachs. And they're now claiming, oh, we hold these mortgage bonds. all magically now they hold them because the 6 years of statute of limitation of the government looking back for the bonds are gone. And now, of course, they're saying they hold the bonds. And that's why the people, whoever your mortgage or anything is with, if it's any of these vulture funds, they will never meet you in person because there must be a break in criminal fraud. And what they'll always do is use a service provider in between, like the Peppers or the Capitas. And they're all owned by Goldman Sachs as well, by the way. But they will use them so these companies can say, oh, we didn't know anything, we were only servicing, when it should end up in The Hague with crimes against humanity.
Incredible. And what about the 13 billion from Apple that we keep saying, oh no, just keep the money, don't give it to us? What the hell is going on there?
Well, that's another crime against humanity in the Irish people. First of all, even if the Irish people did give authority to tax your fellow man next door, they hadn't that power. But there may be some argument that when you're a corporation or a company trading in Ireland and you registered with the CRO, that you agreed to be bound by all those rules where your neighbour may not have done that. It now has, as I said, the lunatics have taken over the asylum. Corporates wipe each other's arse. And what they do is they will throw the man next door in jail because he didn't pay his TV licence or he didn't pay his 50% of his wages or whatever these thieves are looking for. But because of their corporate buddies, forget about the 13 billion, Irish people are gone beans. And for my short time in politics, I'm laying the blame at the people of Ireland. And I have to do that. And I have to say, in my experience, we are the biggest nation of gone beans ever. And I know that's harsh. It's a harsh reality for a lot of people to hear, and probably not people listening to your radio station because those people are tuned in. I'm talking just in general. You know, people who accept this, you know, nonsense of bailing out, oh, put the debts on our children, and oh, sure, we had to do it, and this complete and utter tripe that we serve up. It's the Irish people our fault. They go out and vote in the same gone beans every time, and they're to blame. And once you tell children in school and till their adult life that we're a nation of, saints and scholars, then that feeds your ego, so you're okay.
Yeah.
But in fact, we're not saints and scholars.
Okay.
We're gangsters, we promote gangsterism, and we're gone beans. And it's a bit like, I suppose, the Americans, when you get the children singing Land of the Free, then it doesn't matter that you have most people locked up per capita in the world. So long as you're singing Land of the Free.
And of course, for a massive tax haven as well. Pat, do you want to jump in there and comment?
I can't remember now what I was going to say. But anyway, as regards the debt...
Well, I know you agree with me, Pat, so it's okay.
The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, he's right. I do agree with him. Anyway, the thing at the end of the day with the odious debt, or not the odious debt, the Apple tax, and Apple is not the only company, by the way. And there's the problem. I remember reading an article about this loophole in the Sunday press. That's going back a long time. And this particular loophole was highlighted. It must have been 25, 30 years ago. And the answer from revenue was, we're well aware of it, but we did ask these corporations if they wouldn't mind not using this loophole. That was in print.
Yeah.
Now that's the mentality of the Irish government. They knew this was all going on for a long, long time. Now why they're fighting it, I just don't know. But even if we do get the billions from Apple, it has to go against the debt that was foisted upon us by the rest of Europe.
Well, Pat,
so we're not going to see anything for it.
No.
Bar right down in interest rates. That's about it.
Well, Pat, you're in County Meath, as is Ben, and as am I. And Damien English, who's a politician for County Meath, he recently got funding for refurbishing the Solstice Theatre in Navan. 300,000, I believe, was the sum of money that he got. And I did make a comment on his Facebook page, and I said, I cannot believe that with the amount of homelessness and people going through evictions, that you're spending a budget of 300k on refurbishing the Solstice Theatre. I mean, I'm sure if I went around the streets and I said to people, right, we've 300,000, do you want to help the homeless and people going through evictions, or do you want to refurbish the Solstice Theatre, I'm pretty sure the majority of people would say help the homeless and help evictions. This is the proof that we have a representative dictatorship, because they are not doing what we want them to do. Pat?
But see, that's what I'm saying. We have an inverted democracy. They are telling us what to do. They're not doing anything. They don't consult us at all. And that's where, sorry, just Ben, I'll just finish on one part on that, where you were saying that if people were asked, but that's where direct democracy would begin. You can put a halt on that spend and then ask the people, get a referendum called on it or plebiscite in that area. Ben, sorry, you were going to say something there.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say this is some of the times where I regret not being in the Dáil on public record, because I'm happy enough to spend it on the Solstice Centre and making our communities better, because I don't want 300,000 given towards homeless or evictions, because it wouldn't do anything. You need the 64 billion back, or you need the bonds that you gave. You need the bonds back that you gave that money for. There has been a theft of the largest scale in history committed on this country, and I want people in The Hague on crime trials and crime accusations against these people that done it. And Noonan should be the first head on the block, because he was the one who gave a great speech just before he was elected, how it was an odious death and affected the poor and the blind and the weakest in our society. And that criminal has then gone and done it even worse with his criminal counterparts, including Enda Kenny and everybody else. And they should all be in The Hague facing trial for crimes against humanity and theft on such a scale that it's incomprehensible for us to understand the amount of money that they took. I remember I was on prime time one night and I said to Miriam, I said that since this programme has aired, that the interest alone had created hundreds of thousands. And she said, oh, we all know that. And I said, well, apparently we don't know it, because anybody I asked couldn't tell you. And that's why I'm saying it has been such a crime on the humanity of this country. And when you see people dragged out of their homes and businesses the length and breadth of this country by the likes of K-Tech thinkers and the likes of them all working for these Goldman Sachs, they should be stripped in public and shot with pellets of their own excrement before they ever get to The Hague.
Hard and feathered.
Yeah, definitely. Get the stocks back out. I think, maybe the rebellion is going to be coming down the road. Before we go over to the questions, I just want to get both of you to give us your take on the issue with the broadcast. I mean, RTE, we mentioned it earlier about the licensing. They want to double the license and your thoughts on it. So, Pat, give us your take on how you see, because what we try and do here in OYM Radio and PIR, I think they're the only two I know that are in Ireland, is to give people a platform so you're not attacked. Because if you go on the mainstream, we know they're all kind of program shills and, they're getting paid the salaries and they're made to say what they have to say because that's the way, the nature of the game. So the alternative media is really the only real platform that you can actually speak your mind and without being attacked, because we are open-minded to it. And, so we just want to get your take on how you see things now and maybe down the road.
In regards to the licensing?
Well, in regard to RTE and what they're trying to do with the broadcasting and...
Just before I go on that one, is to get people to understand what €1 billion is. I did a little calculation there not long ago. And the blue 4x4 pallets, the big blue pallets that people are very familiar with. If you were to get brand new €50 notes and put them in stacks of, say, 50,000, and bind them together and then stack them each on top of one another, the pallet would be 90 foot high of €50 notes.
Wow.
That's brand new notes. So and
the interest in that is another quarter of a pallet every year. That's the problem as well. And interest is not created.
Correct. And not only that, but we've been paying interest for 10 years at €7.5 billion per year. They've already got €75 billion back, and we still haven't paid a penny of the original debt.
Why are we being penalised for that? Why are we having to cough up the debt for Europe?
No, but it's not a matter of penalisation. It's not a matter of penalisation. It's a matter of theft.
It's an odious
Irish
debt. You shouldn't be paying it. Yeah.
It's soft
Of
touch.
course,
If
Irish
you've
people...
yeah. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, Irish people have been so programmed by RTE programs that they believe we had to pay this debt and stuff like that. And I certainly wouldn't give an ounce of credibility to RTE, and I'd welcome anybody bringing me into court for a licence for RTE. But I understand what you're saying about media like OYM and PIR and stuff like that. But I actually welcomed going on prime time, and I'd love to go on it again and discuss any of these issues. The problem prime time I have is when they welcomed me on, they didn't know me, and then they tried to attack. And when they realised I could well stand up for myself, I remember the producer saying to me after the programme, Mr. Gilroy, sorry about the attacks. We have to do that just to get your stance on things. You handle it very well, and I'm sure you'll be a regular on the programme from now on. And then, of course, they just did the hit piece, where I was never on again, could not defend that, and that's a much easier way, So, of course, I welcome coming back on RT to discuss any of these issues, but they would never have me on prime time asking, who's the bondholders? Where's the bonds when we gave them the money? And if they're not giving us the bonds, which are worth millions and billions now, then give us back the money. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake. Well, that's always a stupid saying, have your cake and eat it. But there's no point having your cake. But you know what I mean? You can't take the money, and we can't be forced to pay money if we're not getting the bonds back. And the problem they have now is the bonds are valuable.
Very, very valuable. The thing about the license I have is that they do the same song and dance every time a new charge of any description comes in. For instance, the toll road here in Drogheda, and Drogheda itself is tolled the same as, I think, as Enfield is tolled. They call it a toll road, but they're really tolling a particular town. Anyway, they'll come on the radio and they'll say, the new toll road around Drogheda is going to be €8 per car. €8? God almighty, what are we going to do? €8. And then they come, they'll say later, no, it's only €1.90. That's grand, we'll be all right, we'll be able to pay the €1.90. But Jesus, thank God it wasn't €8. When in reality, there should be no toll at all. Yeah. The road here, just on that particular issue, the road here, by the time the contract has run out, we could have built 3 M1s in over a 30-year period. Now, but I'm
hoping that they come out and they increase the licence fee by 100 times. I think it should be 10 grand for the licence.
Well, the more, again, Ben, going back to how do we get these people to wake up? They have to go through pain. They have to go through the high taxes. Yeah, and that I picked up on that.
But imagine you asking people next door to pay for the falsehoods we're putting on your telly so you can pay the licence fee for the falsehoods. It's like this vicious circle, and you're trying to pull them off this merry-go-round because they're dizzy with it. And you're basically saying, look, if you just step off the merry-go-round, I promise you the dizziness will stop.
But unfortunately, unless they go through severe pain, they won't even realise they're on a merry-go-round.
The problem is they're too dizzy to understand what you're trying to say to them. See, that's why it's this catch-22.
And some
it's
people...
a very clever system. I mean, if I was that way inclined, and I was someone who just was interested in money, maybe I could be, saying to these people, look, I could take the attitude of law, if you like, or at least what they call law, and that is the maximum law that says, let him who be deceived be deceived. And in other words, if you're dumb enough, then I'm taking your money. So if anybody wants to buy, I have an old car here in the driveway, I think it's 04 or something like that, and if anybody wants to give me 50 grand for it, they're welcome to it.
Yeah.
Now, if there's someone dumb enough listening, he deserves to lose his 50 grand, because I've already told him it's an old banger and it's 04.
Yeah, but it's worse than that, Ben, because what they do is, it would be the equivalent of somebody coming up to you, they need transport.
Yeah.
And yours is the only bit of transport available, the only bit. So it goes from value to worth. So what's it worth to you?
Well, it's
worth your entire life.
It's even worse than that, because I'm going to force you to buy it.
Yeah.
Threaten and coerce you to buy it. So it's even worse than that. While it's a necessity, for us, I'm now going to force you and coerce you into it.
But you're going to give it to me one way or the other, because if you don't give it to me, there you go to jail.
Yeah.
But I tell you one thing, if I had a business where I could coerce and threaten people into paying my extortionate price for a service they didn't ask for, and a bad service at that, I would be a multi-millionaire. Yeah. So I welcome it. If I can do it too, maybe I should just turn my whole interest just into greed and money,
Yeah.
Try change my psyche.
Okay, lads, so I'll tell you what we'll do.
Yeah.
We're going to pop off to the questions if you want to say something quick there, Pat?
It's just that the song and dance that they do is going to be used with RTE, and people are going to be relaxed at paying $250, not $300. The other thing is that putting it over to revenue to collect, that is going to become more and more commonplace, because they learned with the household charge that very few paid, that once they put revenue on it, everybody paid.
Yeah.
And that was the way it works, well, bar one or two. I won't mention any names, Ben.
Well, the beast has to satisfy its insatiable hunger for greed.
For money. And the other thing is that when it boils down to it, how many companies or how many management companies, and that's basically all this state is, this government is a management company, are supposed to take directions from the owners of the company, which we are. But how many companies have bollocks up the entire accounts, scramble it to such an extent that nobody recognises it, and then they come to the owners of the company and say, "Here, give us more money." And if you don't give us more money,
I know the lads are anxious just to cut in their questions, but just before that, I remember there was an Anglo shredder. He stayed all weekend shredding papers. I see he got a job in the government, because I suppose if I would need shredding, he's the guy I want. And secondly, we spoke about the Constitution and the contract that you signed and everything. Well, I remember Enda Kenny offering a contract and didn't fulfil it. And I think we should all sue him for breach of contract. Imagine if there's 4 million cases against him.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, that will never happen either.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pop off the questions. Steve.
Sure. Right, okay, the first thing I just want to say is we recently...
Hi, Steve. Didn't talk to you all night.
I've been sitting here listening.
Yeah, Steve does that. He just sits back and listens.
I sit here in the rocking chair with me
You're
finger...
like the sponge, you take it all in.
I do, yeah.
You've got the old cap and the pipe and the old turf fire beside him in the rocking chair.
The turf fire and the cup of tea. Yeah.
There's the sovereignty. The tea with the leaves floating on the top, and it's all made in the pot with the milk.
That's right. Takes me back, so it does. Anyway, we recently talked about the likes of the toll roads, and the East Link Bridge, if anyone is familiar with the East Link Bridge, that was actually built, was opened in 1984, and my father-in-law worked on the bridge. His job was to open the bridge. And that's what he did. But even when he was going to work to open the bridge, he had to go across the bridge in order to get to the other side. And even though he was an employee of the company, he still had to pay. But that's neither here nor there. The bridge was opened in 1984. There was a 30-year. It was kind of planned 30 years into the future. So that would bring us up to 2014. That the bridge would then revert to the public, and it would have been paid for. It would have been paid obviously a couple of times over, and therefore the toll will be taken off and it will be free to use. And anyone who's gone across it recently will realise that has not happened and is not about to happen anytime soon. So even like when they do they can make all these promises. We're opening a toll road. Once it's paid for, it will be handed over to the public, and so you can come and go as you please. Again, just more lies. So. Just mentioning that.
That's direct democracy would just nail that one on the head straight away.
Exactly, because obviously it's a broken promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Never heard that in this country.
Okay, let's go to questions. Let's get some.
Duncan said earlier, we should have a government system like Switzerland where the MPs are bound by a contract-like deal, and if they don't abide by their promises, they are removed from office. Well, that's exactly that's the direct democracy. Thanks for that, Duncan. A lot of great comments coming in, and one for Ben saying, can you ask Ben, is there anything I can do to help me fight a management company that is looking for money off me that is mostly made up of legal fees? I don't remember agreeing to pay their solicitors.
Again, that's a matter of contract, and he needs to look at the contract in its whole. He would be bound by whatever he agreed in the contract. And
And we can't do individual cases because it'll take up radio time.
No, but it's just to say that to him that, he would, any contract, you need to just see what you agreed to, and them management contracts are always in writing because they're to do with property or land, so he's bound by whatever was there.
Yeah, that question was actually from Chris, and Chris actually went on to say, will you also thank Ben for his previous interviews on OYM? He gave me the courage and belief to fight the banks. Many thanks for his very helpful information. So obviously, I mean, Chris he has taken on a fight, and he is kind of halfway through the fight, and it's all thanks to a lot of the information that you gave on previous interviews, Ben. So yeah, thanks for that.
And I appreciate that, because sometimes when you're on the firing line and all you're getting is the bullets, you forget that there's actually the silent majority, perhaps even behind you. So sometimes that's good. And look, I always say to people, fight against corruption no matter what. Corruption exists because good men do nothing. And also, when you're on your deathbed, trust me about this, you'd be delighted you did, because you can say, well, at least I fought, even if they took everything.
Yeah. Okay, Steve?
Yeah, from People's Internet Radio, they can't give us the bonds because that would make them admit to money. They know there is no such lawful money. They are just keeping us in the belief of its apparent existence. What do you think of that one?
Well, there you go. Either the bonds or the money we gave them have to exist. If they don't exist, just come out and say, but I want something back. I want either the money or the bonds. They can't have it both ways.
Exactly. In relation to the likes of RTE, and if they do get revenue involved, we'll go to Pat first on this one. But, I mean, what do you think, Pat? Do you think, is that something that we can legally fight? Is there an argument in there? Is there a loophole by RTE because it is what it is, and then they're trying to basically force revenue to rob us at gunpoint, so to speak? Do you reckon we have a chance of fighting that one?
The difficulty is that there's a chance to fight everything with revenue, but once you get into the courts just twist everything around, move the goalposts on a daily basis, and Ben will know that one very well, and then you're screwed over. I have a situation where I know a lad who is in difficulty with revenue. Now, it's to do with the VAT. Now, VAT is a very different kettle of fish to normal taxes, because it's somebody else's taxes. They've paid it over and you're just handling it for them. But this guy is working on the building sites, and he's not allowed to charge VAT to the builder, but he is paying out VAT at the other end. Now, normally what happens is you pay VAT at one end for the goods that you purchase. That amount of VAT then is calculated. Then you charge VAT on top of it. That's why it's called value-added tax. And then that VAT is going to be higher than the other figure. So you subtract one from the other, and you either owe them VAT or they owe you VAT, one or the other. But anyway, what they're doing is that they are stopping money directly from it's called the RCT, Relative Contract. So anyway, the RCT tax, people know it as, and when he gets a check off the company that he's doing the work for, they have to write to government. The tax collectors then say, take 35% off the check. Now, what happens then is nothing. That 35% is taken. For this lad now, it's added up to nearly 10,000. He can't get that back until they tell him he has to pay his property tax. If you don't pay the property tax, you're not getting the money back. But when you try and explain things to them, or you try and threaten them, with courts or anything like that, they don't give a toss. They don't care, and they will just continuously hold on to the money. Now, at the moment, I think it's at 30%, 45% that they're taking off his checks. And shortly, they threatened him with 45%, which means his company won't be able to function. But they don't give a toss, because that's what the computer says. And you heard the old saying, computer says no. And that's all you get when you ring them up. So then they end up sending you to this so-called revenue sheriff. The difficulty is that where I know that the revenue sheriff, the so-called revenue sheriff, is nothing more than any average debt collectors. There's no difference between them or anyone else. But they just put revenue sheriff on top of their paperwork, and everybody gets scared and they run.
Well,
the difficulty goes back to the... Yeah?
Yeah, sorry, go on, Pat. Sorry.
No, the difficulty is that so many people believe them, that they have the power. Then they believe they actually have the power, the authority to destroy you and your family. And there's the difficulty. So, no matter what this guy does, he rings them up, he asks them questions, they will not answer any questions. Not one question will they answer. He even says to them, with whom am I speaking? And say, it's Mary Murphy. So Mary Murphy, which just sounds Mary. And they said, well, what's your surname, Mary Murphy? He said, okay, Mary Murphy. Said, am I speaking to you in your personal capacity, or am I speaking to the revenue commissioners? And that's what you get down the phone. Pure silence. They won't even tell you that
before
much.
I could have crossed you there. I was just going to say that I am not going to promote any bogeyman on behalf of the public. Be it revenue, be it RTE, be it the licence inspectors. I don't promote bogeymen because it's all about authority. Bogeymen don't exist. And as you spoke about Mark Stevens, I remember one of his great things was the only difference between them and Santa Claus is nobody's putting a gun in my face to believe in Santa Claus. So I don't promote the bogeyman. There is no revenue. If you actually go to try and meet the man called Revenue, he doesn't exist. I've never spoken to Revenue in my life. Don't know who they are. And we sort of freak each other out. We do the thieves' job for him. We tell each other how tough this thief is and all his powers and all. And we're the biggest problem in the promotion of this crime and theft and everything else. And I think we need to take our own, realize our own sovereignty and realize our own integrity, realize what inalienable rights mean, and think about it. All power comes from the people. Can I tax my neighbour? Can I send the sheriff to my neighbour because he's not giving me half his wages? And if you just
it's like
principles, don't get more difficult than that.
Yeah, like the chairman of the Revenue Commissioners said in her address, when she was chairman at the time, and that's on PIR as well, that, Ireland is ruled, now I don't like the word ruled, but she used it, Ireland is ruled by consent and therefore taxed by consent. Now that's basically a small part of the sentence that she used. But if we're taxed by consent and they know it, well then if you don't consent to it, that's the end of it. That should be the end of it.
This is Josephine Feely. She was the head of Josephine Feely, head of the Inland Revenue, 3 times on a McGill School document on a talk that she did. 3 times she stated categorically that we are taxed by consent.
Yeah.
And then with all due respect to that lady, I don't need her to tell me anything. I didn't ask for her opinion, and I don't care if she said the opposite of that. Do you know what I mean? That's the point I'm trying to get across to people, that I don't need Josephine Feely to tell me anything. I'm quite competent to handle my own affairs.
Yeah.
But, I can't stop people breaking into my home, arresting me, doing whatever they're going to do, until we all stand together and realise that the nutters have taken over the asylum and we need to take it back. And I'm not promoting violence. I don't like violence at all. But at the same time, stop feeding the bogeyman either. So I don't need Josephine Feely to say it, whoever she is. I don't need the courts to say it. I don't need anybody to tell me what my rights are. I have all rights. No man can tell me what to do.
I agree with you 100%, Ben. I agree with you 100% on that. What I'm trying to say is that for people who are listening to this radio station for the first time and they don't realise what you have known for years and what I have known for years, when we're trying to get it across to them, it's like me doing, alternative medicine. Like for somebody with sinus that was mentioned earlier, snort cocaine. Snort vitamin C.
That's a Freudian slip.
Jesus, no, it was a Freudian slip. Because my brother actually was snorting the vitamin C, the ascorbate.
At least that's what he said when the cops looked in the window. That's his story, and he's sticking to it.
Were you talking to my brother, Ben, were you? Because that's what happened. He was in traffic, He had it on the back of his hand and he snorted the vitamin C, and there's two cops looking in at him.
Well, you know the story about that I was telling you about when I was arrested for not giving my date of birth.
Yeah.
And the lads know because they got me some. Do you remember that bag of sodium bicarbonate you got me?
That's right. Yeah.
And I had some of that in a bag, a small see-through bag, and I had some vitamin C. But for all intents and purposes, there are two bags of white powder sitting on the front seat when I got arrested, right? And when I was in the station, I refused, obviously, to comply. I was very polite, but we're not in Nazi Germany. I'm going along. I was actually on my way to see my daughter sick in hospital at the time. And they imagine arresting someone because you don't tell them something that they already know of when I was born. How irrelevant is it? What does it matter when I was born? But in any event, he said, we're seizing your car now. And I said, what's your grounds for that? Your probable cause. And he said, we're seizing it to search it for drugs. And I said to him, and what's your probable cause? He said, your attitude. I said, you can't use attitude as a probable cause. Otherwise, every drug dealer is just going to be nice to you. That doesn't even make sense. And then they searched the car, and he found the two bags of white powder. When they come into the cell, three of them come in, and the guy had blue gloves on. He said, you're free to go. And I said to him, did you search my car? He said, I did. I said, did you find two bags of white powder on the front seat? He got real embarrassed, and he said, I did, but one said baking soda and the other said vitamin C. And I said, oh, okay, no wonder the country's awash with drugs, because all the drug dealer has to do now is put a big bag of white powder and a sticker saying vitamin C, and apparently you don't get it tested or anything.
Yeah, you won't get tested. Good idea. The thing about it is that for people with sinus, that they snort the sodium ascorbate or calcium ascorbate, it helps clear the sinus. But when I say that to somebody, they look at
cocaine.
me. I'm
joking, of course. I'm joking.
Yeah, of course, yeah. When I say things like that to them, they look at me and they go, yeah, because I don't have a white coat and stethoscope.
Yeah.
So when I'm getting back to the Josephine Fielding thing, I don't need her to tell me that either. But the point is that the average Joe needs somebody in authority to say these things. Otherwise, they just don't believe you.
Yeah.
And that's one of our biggest difficulties, getting any message across.
Yeah, well it was very funny. I was in a hotel in Athlone last week, and a very nice gentleman came up to me, and he said, you're Ben Gilroy. He shook my hand, and he said, I support you in a lot of your stuff, but I don't agree with your stance on fluoride. And I said, all right. And he said, and I'm actually a scientist. And I said, all right, but that could be the fluoride talking. But if he is listening, he's a nice gentleman, and I don't want to say he was a nice gentleman.
Well, we talk about that on the BASIS conference, and a quick plug on the BASIS conference. We actually talked about the psychology of the waking up process and how people psychologically deal with certain information. I'm not going to go into now, but it's actually up on our website. You can watch it. And because it's
just one quick comment then.
Yeah,
it is. And one quick comment that I did say to him is, if somebody wants to check out a speech that David Icke did in one of the big universities in England, he sort of pleaded with young students not to take everything that they learn as being true, because otherwise you'll just be the repeater of false information. And I said to him, while he was a scientist, he's taught by other people, and he doesn't know what they're promoting or what they're not promoting. And you always mix a little bit of poison with the truth. Yeah. Because you just can't come out with 100% lies, because you know the old saying, you can fool some of the people some of the time and all the people some of the time, So I said to him, you could just be a repeater of false information. But I said, I accept your standpoint, but it could be the fluoride talking.
That's very good. Okay, so we talked about the RTE and we kind of got opinions on that. The other thing I want to, because I know, Ben, you have to go about 8:30, you have to finish up. So we will talk to Pat. We want to talk about your case, but Pat's going to give us some information on that. But the last thing I want to touch base on is something that we mentioned at the start of the show regarding the Taoiseach Frances Fitzgerald when she announced her resignation. This was a major kind of issue for the government, because obviously she knew what she knew, and all got to do with the points and penalty systems and being written off, and I believe the breath test as well, and that was all farce as well. What was your take on that? Have you watched the news on it at all? I'll put that to Pat and just get your take on it, Pat.
My take on the whole breath test thing is that when you have a situation where guards are put into a position where they will not get promoted unless they bring in the revenue.
Yeah.
Unless they bring in the whole revenue stream. They're locked into a job and they're at a level, they know they're not going to get up there unless something happens. So the system itself promotes that sort of thing. I would have done it if I was a guard. I'd have started playing around with the books because I know there's not that many alcoholics out there. There's not that many people out there with alcohol on their breath. And even if they are, a lot of them are so low, it makes no difference on the road. I am a pioneer. I don't drink. But I don't agree with the way the drink driving laws are going.
I'm a pioneer as well, by the way. I climb mountains.
No, I'm the other pioneer. I've actually said I won't drink. So tough. No, I do a tougher job than you climbing mountains. Anyway, the end of the day, the system breeds that sort of reaction. And the system has to turn a blind eye to it. Because if they don't, nobody gets promoted, nothing happens, and you get total demoralization. It's not like a lot of guards are out there. There's a lot of good guards out there. And they're totally demoralized because they see the crap that's going on. There's situations where a lot of people think, and I tend to believe it, that so much drug is coming out of the station rather than going into the station. But that sort of thing we can talk about, but we don't know. There's no proof of it. The whole thing about the breathalyzing and the rest of it is that it's sanctioned without being written. Because that was the dumb thing in their days, it's the dumb thing now. But as regards the emails and the minister and whether she should have resigned or she shouldn't have resigned, it doesn't matter. It matters nothing to who is minister, because all they are doing is the deep state, the civil servants, they're the ones calling the shots.
Yeah.
My view on that is, look, it's all corporate interest, and corporates can only survive with greed and profit. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the corporate body is, what the corpus of the corporate is. You know, it could be Apple, as we spoke about. It doesn't matter. And it could be the guards. It doesn't matter. In the latest Garda Charter, they refer to us as customers. What does that tell you? Customers. And secondly, it has always been well known by corporates that if you get caught and the fine doesn't exceed the profit, then it's business sense to go out and do it, whatever it is. Because if you don't get caught, the profit's high. And if you get caught and the fine doesn't exceed the profit, it's still a win-win. You take Bank of Scotland fixing the interest rates and getting caught and being fined a couple of billion, I think it was 4 billion or something, they were fined. But if you make 10 billion profit, then it's much better. And when you're a corporation, nobody's actually accountable. Nobody's going to jail. Bank of Scotland, it is impossible to put Bank of Scotland in jail, even if Bank of Scotland wanted to go to jail. It's an impossibility because they're corporate, they're dead entities. And therefore, unless there's a personal liability from someone doing the act, and they make sure there's not, and they cover that very well. So at the very highest level in their boardrooms, they'll say, manipulate this, manipulate that. What's the risk if we get caught? We'll probably get fined 4 billion. How much will we make? 10 billion. Any of us going to jail? No. It makes sense. Same with Ford when they did their cars years ago and there was supposed to be a recall. They said, what's the reality of people getting burnt in the car if they were rear-ended with a certain petrol tank? They did the maths and they said, let them fry because the profit outweighs any payments we may have to make. That's how corporates work.
Another example of that is the situation with cars in Ireland and the tax on cars. The Irish government, on our behalf, seemingly we asked them to do it, is paying a fine every year to the EU because the fine is less than the money they take off the taxes on the cars.
It's just business.
That's the VRT, is it?
The VRT. So there's a fine paid out every single year. Now they're talking about saving 150 million on this early repayment system that they got permission from the EU. Like, Jesus.
Permission.
And permission, yeah. And they're talking about 150 million there. But they won't talk about the millions in fines that we're paying to the EU because they won't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that is, as Ben said, it's finance. It's just down to business.
Yeah.
Which is the most profitable, and screw the rest of us, screw the people.
Yeah, and we've said it before on the show. I'm watching the time, so we'll let Ben go in a minute there. I totally agree. I've said it before, time and time again. My background is the corporate background, and that's all it is. It's all corporate. But Ben, we're going to let you go because I know you have to run off. Is there anything that you want to put out there? Is there any links or anything like that? Do you want to put out and let the listeners know about before you head off?
Yeah, if they check into my Facebook, I'm up to my 5,000, so I'm not very good, and I don't know, and I've thousands of people waiting for friend requests that I can't do. But I think they can still see stuff on my page, and I put good links to Larkin Rose and stuff like that, Authority, Dangerous Superstition or stuff like that, and he does some great stuff, great admirer of him. Mark Stevens, another good guy. And as you say, there's a general awakening from all these people, Santa Spinacci, and while we might not always agree with each other on certain things, you can see there's a core principle of what we all agree on. And I always say, look, and I used to say it in direct democracy as well, when there'd be certain arguments, I used to say to people, look, we are in such dangerous times and such oppression and such theft and robbery that we don't have to agree with each other all the time. If we can agree on 90% of the stuff, which I'm sure we do, I'll let you all argue about the 10% when we cure 90% of the world and what's going on. And then you can argue, because I'm happy enough to live in a country where 10% is wrong. But there's nearly 100% wrong in this country with theft, oppression, people dragged from their homes. Look at poor Johnny Squires, just the pressure and pressure that was put on him by corrupt banking cartels. And, there's an awakening all over the world. It's not just in Ireland. It's an awakening, and it's programs like this and you lads that give us the opportunity to get our message out. But as I said to you, I'm one of these people who would welcome going on to prime time. They can ridicule me all they want on prime time. I'm well able to stand up for myself when they do that. And the more they ridicule me, the more I must be right, because that's how they have to work. That's how a serpent works. It'll turn on itself even before it would, do anything to promote something in what's against our interests.
Yeah. Okay, Ben. Well, listen, we'll let you go because we know you have to go.
No bother.
So have a good one. Take care of yourself. And look, in the new year we'll hook up and we'll do another one. We'll do a follow up. All right.
No problem. Talk to you then, Don.
All right. Catch you later. Cheers.
Bye now.
Bye, Ben.
Pat, thanks a lot for staying on. And obviously, what we're going to do is. We know that Ben was in court during the week. Unfortunately, we didn't get time to talk to Ben about the case, and obviously maybe he can't really talk about the case. So I know you were there in the High Court. Do you want to kind of give us a heads up on what you've seen, your own opinion and your experience of what went on in the court during the week?
Well, I've heard Ben and others say a long time ago is that when you go into a court system, you expect to get fair play, you expect to get, decent hearing. And in my opinion, anyway, what happened there on Thursday was definitely not that. One of the managers, the line manager, as he tried to make himself out to be, he was just a senior manager in the bank at AIB. He was being cross-examined by Ben, and every time Ben asked a question, the judge interfered. He had to keep referring to his affidavit. Now, of course, he has a lot of affidavits out there, and he's an awful lot of work on. But I don't think he has too many involved where he himself ends up being on the stand. So, with a bit of incredulity, he had to keep referring to his written notes when Ben asked him a question. He didn't even know where the notes were in the books of evidence. So, simple questions like, where did you get your authority from? Who do you work for, actually? That was one. Who do you work for? The answer was the AIB Group. And the AIB Group does not exist as an entity. And he said, well, I work across the AIB, but who do you actually work for? It took Ben about, 5-6 minutes of questioning and the judge interfering with his ideas of what this guy works for. And he eventually works for AIB PLC. And then Ben was trying to get to the whole idea of his authority. Where does he get his authority from? And the judge kept answering the question. And Ben tried to ask the judge, look, will you let him answer the question? And then the judge would turn around a lot of the time and say, you don't have to answer that question, or you can refer to your notes. And it was like Albert Reynolds in the Dáil years ago, when he was asked a question, and the header on the top of his handwritten notes by the civil servant was, if questioned, repeat the above. If questioned again, repeat the above. And that's all we got from the man.
Yeah.
He was repeating verbatim, reading from his affidavit, rather than just speaking with his own words.
Yeah.
And Ben asked him, just with your own words, will you just answer the question? And the judge said, you don't have to answer that. Of course he can refer to his notes.
Does that not say there's a conflict of interest there straight away in your face?
Well, when you say conflict of interest, is that the judge is taking sides with the guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He should recuse himself. Just go, leave, good luck. Ben asked a question. What was it? I'm trying to remember now. I don't have notes in front of me. He was asking a question about, the guy's authority in this particular case. Mm. Where did he get the authority to act? He asked, was he an officer of the company? And he said, no, I'm not. I'm a manager. So if you're not an officer, the only people who have authority in an entity are the officers. Mm. They have legal, ability to delegate to others and give them instructions. But the people who are delegated to have no authority to decide to do something without the knowledge or the direction of the officers. And Ben was trying to get to that. But the judge kept talking to Ben, saying, Ben would say, in this case, now I'm paraphrasing. Ben was saying, in this case, where did you get your authority? You're putting me in jail. You're taking away from my family. Surely to God, you know where it is, or you got the authority to do this. And the judge said, you hardly think that the executive of AIB PLC is going to start looking into every single decision that has to be made by a manager. Surely this is not going to work. And he went on and on and on and on and on about talking about this. And then he'd start giving out to Ben, saying Ben is wasting time. Hmm. We're here an hour and a half now, or an hour and 20 minutes, and we're no further along, Mr. Gilroy. Will you please ask the question? And Ben said, I do ask the question. But the judge kept on with these little soliloquies. They're just little rants of stupidity. And it was quite obvious that Ben is an intelligent individual. Hmm. And he was trying to say, surely, Mr. Gilroy, the CEO cannot be looking at every little decision the line managers make. Now, anybody with an ounce of sense will know that's a stupid statement anyway. Mm. But the judge went on for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, talking to Ben about that. Yeah. And Ben trying to interrupt him, saying, I know that, I agree with you. Still wouldn't listen to Ben, still kept talking, and then give out to Ben about wasting time. It's
unbelievable that, this is what we call justice. I'm just conscious of the time, Pat, and I do want to get in. I want you to give us an update on DDI and where you're at the moment as well. I think we get the picture with the court case. I mean, that's sounds like so many other familiar cases we come across where the judge has I'd say the conflict of interest, but he should be impartial, and obviously he's not. There's an interest there somewhere. But what's your...
Yeah. Or something anyway. Yeah, go ahead, DDI.
So DDI, so tell us where you're at the moment. What's happening with DDI, and what's your plan of attack?
With DDI, we're still there. We haven't gone away. We've gone very quiet, but a lot of the time, because we aren't full-time paid officers, there you go, there's that word again, it's very difficult for us to keep things moving, especially when there isn't an election going on, because people tend to let things slide a little bit when there's no urgency. So we're trying to get that up and running. We've been invited to talk at a couple of events. I'm not going to mention them just yet. In international events around democracy. The reason I'm not mentioning them at the moment is that they haven't got the final go-ahead.
Okay.
From the other end, they're just sounding people out. At the local end, we have a couple of people doing very, very good work on the local authority level. We've those two people may be in a position to take a seat at the next local elections. The organisation is still there; it's working away. We're trying to get together people who can start writing for us, and if there is anybody out there who wants to write on a particular subject, if you can keep it down to around 250 to 350 words, we'd be delighted to take on board what it is you have to say, and we'll get it up on the site or on the Facebook pages and get the information out there. So that sort of thing is what we're looking for. That so that it will keep things fresh in people's minds. But it needs to be related back to the idea of how direct democracy can affect that particular decision. Usually, a line at the end of the piece summing it up that if we had a system of direct democracy, somebody could initiate the referendum. The referendum could be called, and then let the people decide.
You know, I had an idea, Pat, and I was thinking about the whole DDI, and I know you're compared to the likes of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who have been, you know, an organised party for years, and DDI is fairly new. Would it be out of interest if you were to focus all your energies in just one county? If you were to, I mean, you know, break it up rather than try and cover the 32 and have kind of sparse coverage. But just to say, right, what we're going to do is because we know the local councils are all either Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, you know, people, the councillors. So if you were to kind of concentrate the DDI effort and say, right, we're not going to do a thing, we're not going to go across Ireland. What we're going to do is we're going to take one county and we're going to put all our energy and all our representatives into one county, and at least get somebody in the one county to get in, because I'm not saying, you know, maybe from the inside you can change things.
Well,
but again,
that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
There's two individuals in particular. There's two more outside of that, so there's four we're looking at, but two in particular that remain nameless for the moment. And those two people, what we're trying to do then is pull people from across the country, because DDI is very thin on the ground.
Yeah.
We have a good following.
Yeah.
But it's not concentrated in one particular area where you can actually have a big drive, a big push. So what we'll have to do when it comes up to the local authority elections is put out a call to people that they can come and go around door to door, doing the knocking on the doors, and that's what it takes. Putting up the posters, if we have any. Personally, I think the posters, people are sick of them. But we can put up posters, put up signs for talks and information nights about direct democracy and Direct Democracy Ireland itself, so that we can get the information out there in a very short period of time when the election is called. And even before the election is called, we can actually have the information nights anyway, as long as we don't start looking for votes, which we wouldn't do. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do, but we will be concentrating on those particular individuals, but we will be calling on people from all over the country to come to that particular area. Yeah. There's a bit of organisation involved, because we'll have to organise somewhere for people to stay, to be fed, watered, the usual, and then transport itself. So we can get all that done once we have people in the area that are willing to put people up in their homes and feed them and water them. Feed them and water them. So that is in this. We're organising that at the moment. That, you know, the logistics of that, so that we'll be ready and we'll be hit the ground running. It's only the next 18 months, I think, before the next election. Okay. Local election. Okay. Well, we'll kind of keep us posted on that, because obviously we'll be able to do a show on that. Steve, before we let Pat go, do you have a question there from? Do you want to?
Just when we were talking earlier on, Pat mentioned the RCTS. Chris just said he just wanted to let us know, can we tell Pat that Chris was put on 35% on RCTS because someone in revenue made a mistake. Same story, he said he had a tax clearance cert, but on 35%, big contradiction, took a lot of time to get it back to zero. That's in relation to the RCTS. I don't even know what it is. I'm sure you understand the pattern.
Well, the RCT is relative contract tax, and it's for contractors into building sites and anybody really dealing with government agencies. So if you're supplying goods or materials into a HSE department or anything else, you have to have a tax clearance cert, a C2 form. If you don't have that, they will stop at source 35% of the invoice. So for argument's sake, if you have an invoice going in for €123, so your actual cost is €100 plus VAT at 23, and this is for the average person, the average company, I should say. Building contractors are treated very differently. So you've your I'll change it slightly. Say you have an invoice going in for €100. Your costs are €80, but they stop 35% of the €100. So now you've lost money.
Yeah. Oh well.
They have taken €35, but your profit was only 20. They hold on to that until all the taxes they tell you, not ask you, they tell you that you owe. And not only that, but if they even know you don't owe it, they'll tell you to pay it and then sort it.
Incredible, isn't it? They'll get you either way.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
They'll get you either way, and they have the money.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ideas I'm rolling around with. For instance, when you're in business, we have an obligation, because we sign up to a contract through the business company, registering the company, registering the business, to collect taxes. But there's no legislation to say that we have to collect these taxes for free. I do know that was the letter was written into revenue, and all Ben's arguments set aside, basically, like who our revenue, what our revenue, and the rest of it. But just take it at face value that we're working within that system, and we've agreed to work within that system.
Yeah.
But the letter was sent into revenue asking that question. Please state the legislation, statute or act, that tells us that we have to collect this for free. The whole room freaked out. We know that because there was somebody in the room at the time.
Yeah.
And it was sent up to the chairman of revenue straight away. They freaked out. Because people suddenly realized, hang on a minute, we're providing this service. We have people there sitting there all week calculating taxation for individual employees, calculating taxation for ourselves, the company's tax, all these taxes. And we're there paying this person.
Yeah.
And we go into a tax audit. The tax inspectors are being paid. The accountant who's sitting in with it is being paid. A solicitor, if required, is being paid. The only person not being paid is the person making all the money.
Yeah.
And this goes back to Ben's conversation about who gave them the authority to rob me to pay them.
Yeah. It's a minefield, isn't it? It really is a minefield, and I just hope with the likes of doing shows like this and having yourself on, Pat and Ben, to educate the people and to get people to start questioning, the authority of the government, because they're robbing us blind. But listen, we've reached that time, Pat, and we're going to have to let you go. But again, a big thank you for coming on and sharing the information that you did. And good luck with DDI and what you're doing with the party. We'll get you on again in the new year, and we'll get more into detail as to what's happening there and other bits and pieces that's going on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact details where people can find you and find out more about DDI. Steve.
That's great, and thanks for having me on, lads.
No problem.
Yeah, no,
thanks,
absolutely fantastic. Great information, Pat. Chris is just saying there, a very interesting point about collection tax on behalf of the revenue. I think that's very interesting, and we should be shouting that from the rooftops, let everybody know. We have your website. Sorry, we have your website here.
Yeah. I was just saying, just before we go, just say to you that there's nobody out there, small businesses in particular. Small business can be just one man, and he can be earning less than a wage that other people are earning for doing 30-hour a week. We'd be doing 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Nobody is speaking up for that man or woman. Yeah.
Totally
so
agree.
DDI is going to start doing that. So go ahead anyway. Sorry, lads. Yeah, you have the website there.
Yeah, you've already started speaking up for that man, Pat. Anyway, we have directdemocracyireland.ie. We have that up on the chat there, so people, if they want to find out about more about DDI, they can go over there. Any other links you want to throw out there, or is everything on the website?
We have the Facebook link there, and it's Direct Democracy Ireland, a National Citizens Movement. That's us on Facebook. And we're hashtag capital D, small I, small R, capital N, capital C, capital M. Hashtag Direct Democracy NCM. That's what that is.
That'll be the Twitter, Pat,
yeah? Twitter, yeah.
Oh. Brilliant stuff. All right, Pat, stay with us there for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
DIRDEM NCM. Sorry, Direct Democracy, yeah. Okay, sorry, the Twitter one, I can't remember it because it comes up automatically. Sorry about that, lads.
That's okay. We'll track you down and we'll give it out. No problem. All right, Pat, just stay with us there. We're just going to go off to a musical break. We'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Okay, yeah, Kate Bush running. She's still running up that hill. I think Ben Gilroy is halfway up at the moment. Hashtag DIRDEMNCM is the link there that Pat just gave us during the break. I am going to put it on the chat for anyone who's interested, but only for people who are listening on the podcast, it's the hashtag capital D, small I, small R, capital D, small E, small M, and capital NCM. So that's just for people who are listening to the podcast.
Brilliant stuff. Okay. Just a couple of things. I've seen a meme during the week which I thought was interesting. And the meme said, I could never be a politician because every time we had a debate, I would start off with, listen here, you arrogant, selfish, egotistical, ignorant, treacherous parasite. I just thought it was very good. Yeah, that would be very good if we give that to Ben. He's in the doll. Well, okay, and we got another email in from Joan, a long-time listener of OYM, and she wanted to. Chris sent us in a quick email. I love your license there, Chris. Your TV license. It's his name is Tommy Edison on his TV license.
Yeah, actually, his previous one was Mark
Coney.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Joan said that this letter is taken. A letter to the editor in the Nexus magazine, and she quickly says, hi Duncan, my husband Harry was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma last November 2016, and he had a huge tumour in one testicle plus one around the aorta higher up. He decided to purchase the smaller biomat and then later the large one. And he spent 1 hour each day lying on the big one. His tumour shrank amazingly. He also bought a Rife machine, the Spooky 2 version, and we both spend 2 hours per day having anti-cancer frequencies beamed at us via a plasma ball. The result is that Harry is now in better health than he has ever been for the last 7 years, in spite of his oncologist telling him he would die within months if he did not have chemotherapy. After 2 sessions of chemo, he was so sick that he swore he would rather die than continue it. I have a good mind to write a letter to his oncologist explaining what we have done. Goes to prove that if it is more dangerous to follow the medical model than to do one's own research and follow an immune boosting program. Very good, John. Thanks for that information. Again, there's alternatives out there. You know yourself, everybody knows the alternatives out there. And it's good news for Vera Toomey as well, because she was granted a license for medical cannabis.
Yeah, that was
and that kind of set the precedent in Ireland. So the walls are beginning to come down. Fingers crossed, we're going to see more of that, because Ireland are normally 30 years behind everybody else. And there has to be corporate interest there. And again, if people turn around and start going on about, marijuana is a drug, cannabis is a drug, it causes psychosis, look, do the research. I've done the research, and I know that it's a plant. We know that it was made illegal because of the DuPont family in America, because it was competition for them. And yes, if you buy cannabis or marijuana from a street drug dealers, which is laced with all kind of chemicals. Of course it's going to cause mass psychosis in teenagers. But if you actually get it from the hemp plant, and the proper plant, you grow the proper plant and take it from there, then you know what? It's not going to happen, because there's been research on this, and 100% the doctors agreed on it. I've had a look at the research. So there you go. There's the argument. And the fact that a lot of countries are now legalising it anyway, it's all kind of making sense. The walls are coming down. It's just taking time, and we need to stand in our own power and our own energy, and start questioning these people that knock on the door and want to vote. I was going to say about the two people I think that are in politics, but I've said it before on the show. You know, you have the naive people who think they can change things, in the likes of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. George Lee tried that. And you have the other person who knows he can't change anything, but you want to get the nose in the trough. They're the only two people that I see that's in the mainstream parties. And I'm talking about all mainstream parties. So you just have to do your research, folks. You know, I know people will tell you things and you read things, but you have to cross-reference stuff. Now, I don't know. I'm going to say something. I don't know how true. Won't say I don't know how true it is. I've heard Cassie Crowhurst, which we might get on the show, a lady that was on with Vin, and she does her own Facebook podcast. Very good girl, very open-minded, and very knowledgeable about what's going on. And she did mention that there was a politician in the UK called Damien Greene that were helping them with the constitution to fight the system. And all of a sudden, and I spoke to my partner earlier today, and my partner said to me, isn't it funny that all of a sudden this Damien Greene has been found with pornography on his laptop? And everybody's saying, is it a stitch-up? I wonder, is it a stitch-up compared to if he's the TD or he's the politician that's helping the Constitution group fight the system, and all of a sudden they found pornography on his laptop. That's
coincidence, isn't it? Yeah.
Coincidence. That's how it works, folks. You know, that's how they do it, you know. So what have you got planned for the week? Anything interesting?
Me? Anything interesting?
Yeah.
Well, since I won the lotto, I was just going to maybe buy the country.
I thought you were looking at playing with the Rolls-Royce parked outside.
Yeah. No. I've no real plans, you know, just kind of back to work tomorrow and just kind of take it, you know, every day as it comes. I was kind of feeling there during the week that, you know, we're not winning the war. We're making small little dents, but, you know, and then when I heard that podcast earlier on, saying that it could be 2034 before, you know, we really see any kind of difference, it was a little bit disheartening. But, you know, when you have Ben coming on and you have Pat sharing their information, and, you know, you can see then that, you know, we are kind of, there is small little wins. You have to call them wins, I suppose. But, you know, for the common man, it's a win.
The cracks in the system are beginning to appear.
They are, yeah. And, you know, obviously, the more what people don't realise is that, you know, if you have a small group of people trying to break down, I mean, okay, look at the Berlin Wall as an example. When the Berlin Wall came down, if you only had, you know, Paddy and his four mates, you had a five-man crew knocking down that wall, it would have taken a long time. But, you know, once everyone joined in and momentum was gathered, that wall was taken down in no time. You know,
yeah,
and that's kind of what we're kind of saying here, and that what we've always said. You know, if you get the information and you know it to be true, share it wide with everybody. You know, because the more people who know the information, and the more people we can have on side fighting the corrupt system.
It's something that, it's people power, folks. We are the solution. We will solve the problem. There's no saviour programs or no saviours coming to save us. We are the people who will save ourselves. Now, if you want to pop over, as I say, we put the Basis Conference up on our YouTube page, and pop over there. You'll get an hour of us talking about the fluid belief system and the awakening process. If you have a listen to that and you feel that will help you, or you learn something from it, happy days. If you have any constructive comments, there was a guy called, his name was something like Shitty Potty Pants or something on YouTube, who made a comment regarding Miles and stuff like that, and I just deleted it because it wasn't even constructive. It's probably just a troll. So if there's any bad comments like that, I don't know why you waste the time, because I just delete them. You know, I don't have time for people like that. If it's constructive and it doesn't use language, then happy days. We can take the good with the bad. But if you're just going to go in and slag people off and have nothing to say constructively, we're not interested. Right, next week we have Thomas Williams on. We're going to get a summing up of 2017 from Thomas, and we're going to be talking about what's going on and what the plans are for 2018 and see what happens. But for myself, Alan James, we have to switch off the PIR. Take it easy. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Okay, yeah, great information from the two lads tonight. If you have any information, or if you just listened to the show, you enjoyed what you heard, first time listener, info@oymradio.com is the email address. Please do fire one over. We have a little online shop as well if you want to get something. If you have a couple of euro burning a hole in your pocket and you want to put it to good use, you can click the donate button on the website as well. All donations are really appreciated. And thank you very much. From myself, Stephen George, we'll see you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.